And actually, I'm very excited about this one. This is the Utaina connecting Aotearoa through digitized sounds and stories. We're going to have 3 speakers. We're going to have Zak, who is the logistics coordinator for the Utaina Project. We're going to have Cynthia, who's the audiovisual digitization leader of the National Library. And we're going to have Josh Ng, the digital preservation analyst, Archives New Zealand. They're going to talk about Utaina, a multi-year collaborative digitization project with the goal of preserving Aotearoa's at-risk audiovisual taonga. I'm not going to say any more because I'm sure they're going to spend a lot of time with it. Again, keep in mind, questions go on to Slido. I'll read them at the end. Otherwise, good luck to you guys.
Right. Kia ora koutou. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time today. I would like to start by having a show of hands. How many of you have ever used cassette tapes? Wow, I'm surprised. And how many of you remember when you played those tapes? Sometimes they squeal, and then the tapes got chewed up by the player. Yeah. How many of you have VHS tapes, or your parents, tucked away somewhere in the cupboard, no players to play them? Yep. And vinyls. Anybody into vinyls and not have a player to play them? We know where to go. So now here's the big one. How many of you tried or thought about, transferring some of these content from VHS tapes, for example, into a digital format, but not knowing where to go or how much it would cost? Show of hands. Thank you. So these are, our own very small personal frustrations. But what if these problems don't only just apply to your own home music collections or video collections? What if it affects a nation's memory? And that's the question that sparked Utaina. So, we are trying to tackle the same sort of problems, but at a national scale, making sure that New Zealand's at-risk audiovisual heritage doesn't disappear. I completely forgot my slides. So audiovisual material is actually really fragile. Magnetic tape formats like cassettes or VHSs, they're not designed to last forever. In 2015, the National Film and Sound Archive of Australia warned us of deadline 2025. It is a tipping point where a lot of these magnetic media was forecast to become actually unplayable. And UNESCO and also YASA, which is the International Association of Sound and Audiovisual Archives, repeated actually the same warning. Why? Not because people didn't care about their tapes previously, but it's because we don't make those machines anymore. And the machines, and including the parts that we had, they were breaking down and there's no way to replace them. The machines become unrepairable. And also the expertise and the knowledge to operate these machines, they also are declining. Like people are retiring, so we don't have those engineers and knowledge anymore. The tapes themselves are also degrading. And on those magnetic tapes that we hold, they are our treasure, right? Our cultural taonga. Thousands of hours of voices, of music, of interviews, broadcasts, and actually government records as well. They were all at serious risk. They were about to vanish. And if we don't act, we risk losing them forever. We did some calculations. So the archives and library, if we were to keep at our normal pace, it would take us 100 years to try and protect and preserve these items. But the Utaina Project made it possible in under 5. The Utaina Project is a 5-year collaboration between the National Library of New Zealand, Archives New Zealand, and Ngā Taonga Sound and Vision. The name Utaina comes from Sir Apara Nanata. It means load the precious freight on board, and it's a metaphor for protecting and preserving Māori language and heritage before they all disappear. And that's what it felt like for us as well, a race against time to get these recordings of those really fragile magnetic tapes into the digital world. It's not a small task. It's not a very side project that we could do on when we have spare time in our jobs. Utaina was actually one of the largest audiovisual preservation projects in Australasia. So far, we've only been superseded by BBC. So this is a preservation project, but it's more than just about preservation. It was about doing everything at scale, with the people or the systems or the logistics and the workflows that are required to move tens of thousands of audiovisual items week after week, digitized, and then return them all in one piece back to the original location. So at the National Library and Archive New Zealand, we have over 70,000 audiovisual items in scope for this project, and that span across 13 different formats and accumulate to more than 73,000 hours of recordings. So think about this. If you press play now, it will take you 8 years of continuously listening 24/7 to listen through or watch all this entire content. And now Taonga Sound and Vision have over 350,000 items. But altogether, they all have to be preserved within a few short years before the tapes became unreadable. So now I'm all just talking about numbers, but behind each of these numbers hides a story. It could be an oral history capturing the voice of a kaumatua, an elder who's no longer with us. It could be a song pressed by a small but now defunct music label from the Cook Islands in the 1980s. It could be a government inquiry tape documenting decisions. So each item is very, very small, but altogether they form the memory of our nation. Before we continue, we just want to share with you an item that has been made accessible by Utaina, and I hope you enjoy this.
Down on the beach, reaching for the sun. Time for a dip to cool my hips. In between the flags is safety in the sun. Swim between the flags, it's safe for everyone. In between the flags is safety in the sun. Swim between the flags, it's safe for everyone. Ooh, ooh.
Really catchy. It's just one of the examples of the things that we have managed to digitize. A lot of advertisements, government broadcasts, and things like that. So Cynthia was talking about scale. So to operate in this scale means we have to reimagine our processes and we have to re-engineer everything. So we've been operating BAU preservation for a very long time, but our manual and bespoke processes were not fit for purpose in this kind of scale. This is where we need to have creativity and the courage to step in to the unknown. We have to refine and devise new ways of creating records. We have to figure out how to describe the different conditions that we have seen. We have to figure out a way to package and track items week by week at a pace that is never done before. We also need to find new ways to store the data and the metadata. So these new ways of working require new roles and job descriptions. A new team is formed, a joint project team, and this team would have to be trained in both institutions' collection management system and the collection handling processes, and also need to be trained on how to access both collection storages. Our own collection management database were not sufficiently adaptable to safely record this whole process of the very intense movement. So we had to purchase a tool and heavily configured it for this particular purpose, because such a product just doesn't exist at that point in time. We also had to design a QC strategy at scale. How do we check each and every format that has been digitized and make sure that it is according to digital preservation standards? And we have to come up with a way to decide which one gets checked 100%, which one we do a sampling process, maybe at the beginning, the middle, and the end. And we have to keep tweaking this process as we go along as well. So all in all, the way we manage these new digital files also require new thinking. We have to build a new infrastructure, because this whole process happens in an off-site facility in Wellington, out in Avalon, and we have to figure out how to transfer the data between Avalon to our own digital storage and the flow of data. And bear in mind that these files are really huge. 1 hour of recording is about 100 gigabytes or thereabouts, transferring to and fro everywhere. And most importantly, we have to figure out, okay, so after we digitize them, we have to store this data safely in New Zealand. Where do we store them? Right, so there's quite a bit of a struggle, like all projects do, and we all, some of these include collection and holding discovery information. So each of our institutions have a way to describe our own items and our own collection, but some of these are dated. Not all have full condition reporting. So that means we know it's an item there, but we do not know how degraded it is, whether it can be sent through the pipeline for digitization in this scale. To be honest, it was messier than we expected. So we did spend quite a lot of time in this phase, really just getting to know what we have so that we can move on to the next phase. Logistics, as mentioned earlier, to move the items from our collection holdings to our vendor Memnon in Avalon, and then back to us. And in the process, tracking what's happened and where it is and which item is done. That takes a lot more than we thought as well. Digital storage, originally we estimate that if we were to digitize everything, it would be more than 1 petabyte. In the end, it was less than 1 petabyte because of a few things that we have done. Storage cost pressure is real. 1 petabyte is a lot because at that point in time, our total storage is nowhere close to 1 petabyte. It's about maybe half of that. And that is after we have run for many, many years. So suddenly a new 1 petabyte coming in will be a significant cost pressure. So we have to make some compromise. We have to adopt lossless compression. For those who know, like having compression for preservation master is a huge undertaking for heritage organizations, but we had to take this decision because we have no choice. The storage would have been too big otherwise. And of course, there is quality control. How do we make sure that what we have digitized is accurately represented as close as possible to the original item? And we would have to have a new team, new processes, everything created new. So the scale of the project really forced us to rethink how we work, how we balance accuracy, how do we make it sustainable at this scale because it's going to be running for a few years, and how can we still be confident about the quality of our work? So the truth is, we couldn't have done this alone. The only way to face these challenges, the messy data, the logistics, the massive files, the quality control, the scale, was through collaboration. So this is all the partners that's involved. So as Cynthia mentioned, this whole project is Archives New Zealand, National Library of New Zealand, and Ngā Taonga Sound and Vision. So first we came together, worked together by making the case for Budget 2020. That was the beginning. So that gave us this funding and the mandate to do this work. We presented ourselves as one buyer so that we can show the scale and the urgency, and that gave us leverage. That's how we were able to attract Memnon, which is a quite seasoned international company doing this kind of digitization work, headquarters in Belgium, to come all the way to set up shop in New Zealand. So it's out in Avalon. And they also have one of the largest banks of playback equipment in the world, so which is very crucial because this is the reason why we are in this deadline 2025. The playback equipments are running out and the parts are not being created again. And we also partner with Crown FIL to safely handle all of these collections. That is not something that we can just roll a trolley across the road kind of thing. So we have to be planned adequately. So the whole process has been ongoing, and we realized that we have some differences between the way archives and library is done our way and the way taonga have done it. So we have decided to go slightly deviate on our path moving forward, but still we often come together and share the challenges. For example, taonga will do a format first, say VHS, and then after that, from that, the learnings we will then take, and then it's our turn to do VHS, and so we sort of do it together, even though it's two separate stream of work. And now I'm going to pass the time over to Zak.
So for archives in the library, working side by side was at the heart of Utaina. It wasn't just at the project level. Inside each institution, we also had to collaborate across business units. Preservation specialists, IT teams, logistics, curators, catalogers, and descriptive teams. So many people had to come together to make this work. You might notice I'm one of the few people that is not in this photo. I had a good excuse, though. I was getting married that week. But actually, hundreds of people have contributed to Utaina at some point in the past 5 years. And we didn't flatten our differences. We leveraged them. Different systems, different cultures, different priorities. But together, we built shared systems, pooled expertise, and solved problems as they came. Acting together and acting on time made all the difference. This project was never about one organization carrying the load. It was about a network of strengths. That collaboration was the only way we could carry 70,000 fragile items across the finish line. Before I talk about the impact of Utaina, I'd like to play another clip of something digitized by Utaina. Roto Ite, Happy Valley by the Sweeney Boys. So preservation through digitization is only half the story, because once you have digital files that are discoverable, you have access. As a result of Utaina, a large amount of audiovisual material has become more accessible to our researchers. Music shows a good example of the value and meaning that this digitized content can have for our researchers. Music can elicit powerful memories and emotions. The National Library cares for a large amount of music that can't be found anywhere else in the world. In the past, the only way to hear this was to travel to Wellington and listen directly in our reading rooms. Now, thanks to digitization and our pilot project virtual reading room, people can access them from anywhere in the country or even overseas. We preserved milestones like Blue Smoke, New Zealand's first professionally released song, and a wide range of television programs that formed part of everyday life. But through recordings like Happy Valley, researchers have also been able to gain new access to music made by their parents and grandparents. The National Library's research librarian of music, Mark Hector, has been a huge help in analyzing the research requests that we have had for music digitized through Utaina. What we've noticed is that a large number of requests have come up for music for cassette-only labels, mainly operating in Tamaki Makaurau in the 80s and 90s. These are labels such as Samoa Daystar Records, Polynesian Records, Vaimutu Records, TNA Onu Studio, and Vision Recording Studio. This was music produced by and for the Pacifica community in Aotearoa, and most of these labels and studios no longer exist. This means that their recordings are effectively orphan works. You can't buy them online. They're not on Spotify or YouTube. But through Utaina, the library is now often the only place where they can be found. Even for more established artists, digitization has made a difference. For example, early cassette releases by Samoan artist Aniceto Falamoe have now been digitized. Last year, we were able to provide 5 digital copies of his recordings back to him. This is where the impact becomes very real. Utaina has preserved thousands of hours of audiovisual heritage, but more importantly, it has made that heritage available again. As a result of the project, virtually all of New Zealand's published and unpublished music is available in perpetuity. For researchers rediscovering music of their whānau, connecting new academic threads, and even reconnecting with their own past work. And this is just the beginning, because once you have 70,000 preservation files, new possibilities open. Looking ahead, there are exciting opportunities to enhance our work. For example, integrating Utaina's workflows into our regular BAU operations, using Utaina as a model for other large-scale preservation projects, worldwide even. We might discover new ways to connect researchers with material, surfacing voices and songs that would otherwise stay hidden. Exploring the use of AI on digitized content, for example, AI could automate transcription, making audiovisual content more accessible and searchable. In video, it could assist with object and facial recognition, generating richer metadata for researchers. AI could also help us better detect noise and signal, enabling more accurate truncation of files. Additionally, AI could help us analyze correlations between physical deterioration on the original items and digital deterioration observed in the QC reports, allowing us to improve our preservation strategies for our future projects. Digitization isn't an endpoint, it's a foundation. It gives future generations the chance to build. So I'd like to finish with Blue Smoke. Recorded in 1949, it was the very first record wholly produced in New Zealand. It's a milestone in the history of New Zealand sound recording. Through Utaina, we've preserved it in digital form. Not just the disc itself, but the recording, the voices and music, so that they remain accessible for future generations. What makes this even more special is an alternative version of the recording was rediscovered in Archive New Zealand's holdings through Utaina. Recorded by the National Film Unit for a newsreel and signed by the composer Ruru Karaitiana, it's the only copy of its kind. And now the National Library has digitized its lacquer disc of the original commercial release, meaning listeners can hear and compare these versions side by side. It's an extraordinary piece of our musical history. So here is Blue Smoke, a unique recording, once fragile and almost lost, now safe, preserved, and available again.
Shot one, take one, B.
That's what Utaina is about. Preserving voices, connecting communities. Nahimi nui. Thank you.
We have time for a couple of questions off of Slido. The first question is, and fight over yourselves, amongst yourselves, who's going to answer it. How do you prioritize what you preserve?
Okay, I'll take that question. So actually, there is a different level of prioritization between the National Library and actually Archives New Zealand. So for the National Library, we worked with the curators to find, significant interviews, collections, significant composers in their work. So that's sort of how we prioritize that, and whether we have copies of the tapes already, for example. But for Archives New Zealand, I think the prioritization it's quite different. It's look at what is the key events. For example, Mount Erebus was one of the more well-known events which we have to definitely prioritize for preservation. I think it's also any major political or government records that we think it's more important. We work with the archivist and senior archivist to determine that as well. So that is how we prioritize what we digitize. In terms of the actual digitization work, we of course try to prioritize anything that is actually in good condition so that they can be handled in a mass digitization project. And anything with, quite deteriorated physical condition, we deprioritize so that we can raise the awareness and actually bring them in-house for repair before we digitize. I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
One of the questions I'm going to guess the answer to, but it's a good one. Are the originals still kept?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, the originals.
We are not disposing the originals.
And we're not getting rid of those. The last question, there's a lot of questions, a lot of great stuff, a lot of fantastic questions. I really thank you all, but we have to move on to my ritual humiliation. What would you have done differently? Now that you've been far along, you've recorded a lot of stuff. What are the lessons learned? Quickly.
Okay. Quickly. So I think if we were to start again, I think we would actually spend time to do the preparation work. So the discovery work, do it first, and have as much more refreshed data than when we started. I mean, we started during pandemic as well, so it's not something that can be helped. But if there were any backlog material, describe them. So what we ended up doing was, over the course of 2-3 years, we've had to create new records. We created 27,000 previously undescribed material as part of Utaina as well, which we didn't highlight here, but of course that took a lot of work, and that sort of sometimes pushes our digitization schedule a little bit. But yeah, that would be the one key thing that I would do differently. But I think everything else sort of worked fairly okay. Yeah, so that's my answer. I will invite the others to say anything that they would like to. What would you do differently? Joshua.
The IT infrastructure, we really significantly underestimated how big and complex this is going to be. And we've tried multiple times trying to design a system, and then we spent a lot of time on the discovery phase before we landed on what we have in the end. And even what we have in the end is also a product that is not designed for what we are wanted to, and then we had to configure it in flight. So it is like a development in production kind of feeling. Right? And, everything is at pace, week by week. We have weekly meetings, and it was just a lot of we suddenly become testers, and then we also are the one using the system. It's just going very fast. So I guess now that we've done it, we know what to do. If we do it again, we'll be better at designing the system. Yeah.
I think I would second what Joshua said, because we all had headaches.
There were a lot of spreadsheets.
A lot of spreadsheets.
Well, thank you very much, guys.